Okay.
And Becky, you might want to minimize your Zoom. There we go. Now we're rocking and rolling. All right.
Okay, Jed, do you want to kick off? Okay, he's back on. We don't hear you though, Jed. I'm gonna have to unmute you. Okay, you should be able to talk now, Jed.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I am Jed. Thank you very much for joining us today, and I thank you for your patience as we get started. I am on the road traveling, so we're trying to juggle multiple things, but we're going to have a good session today. Becky Bone and Jimmy Brem are leading it today. Jimmy is our Vice President of Planning and Solution Development, as you can see on the screen, and Becky Bone is our Director of Academic Planning. And I am your account executive, for those of you who haven't met me yet. And I look forward to meeting with you sometime in person, and happy to do things virtually in the meantime. And so I'm going to go ahead and sorry, I should also introduce Marcus Ferreira, one of our later webinars. We're doing a series of 3. This is the first one. There's one coming in November and another in January. And Marcus will be leading one of those. He's the instruction and academic planning. So with that, I will hand it over to Becky and Jimmy and let them take it away for the day.
Thanks, Jed. Pleasure to be with you. And as Jed mentioned, excited for the opportunity to come visit you all up there in Northern New England in hopefully the near future. What we have put together for Northern New England and for all of those schools and districts that Jed is so honored to serve is this 3-part webinar to discuss how Scholastic Education Solutions can continue to be your partner and really meeting the demands of comprehensive literacy. What we're going to talk about today is such a critical part of all comprehensive literacy, which is really around making sure that outside of whole group instruction, we know the critical nature of whole class instruction. And you can see that on Thursday, November 18th, we're going to dig deeply into whole class standards-based instruction and the critical nature of that. But what we know is that as an addition to whole class instruction, each student must have the opportunity to have that differentiated small group. It would be great if we had a class of 25 students who were all found themselves in the same place of their educational and literacy journey, but we know that's never going to happen. And thus making sure we have empowered small group instruction is the way to make sure all students have at least a year's growth. And many of our students have that accelerated growth needed for them to catch up and keep up. So this is the 3-part series that we're going to do. We'll end it on Thursday, January 20th, where we'll talk about what students do when in independent learning is obviously so valuable for them to get that practice and increase their rigor and stamina around literacy, reading and writing, but also how that independent learning should help us drive what each student needs in their individualized path to literacy success. So that's the 3-part webinar. We'll post the recordings of each of these on here as well. So should you not be able to attend one, you definitely can get the recording, but so happy to have you here today. So when we begin this conversation, next slide, and talk about what literacy should look like inside of the classroom, we have direct whole class instruction. We have when students move out of whole class instruction into independent learning, they take the skills that we taught them as a class and they attempt to apply those skills on their own. That's the goal of independent learning. And what is small group learning then? Small group learning is where we help students with the skills they are not able to apply independently yet. So at Scholastic Education Solutions, we think of this classroom here as students moving from whole class to independent and then to small group for the skills that they need support on that they couldn't apply independently. Many times you'll hear people say whole group, small group, independent, because that goes from big to medium to small. But really what we believe is that we need to go from whole class instruction to what I can do on my own to what I need support doing because I couldn't quite apply that skill on my own. Now, what are we doing inside of all of that whole class, independent, and small group learning structure? Well, we're teaching those core tenets of literacy. So it is universally agreed upon wherever, always, reading wars have been a part of my educational career, always. And regardless of where you are on those reading ideals, we know that we have universal agreement that students must learn comprehension and vocabulary, phonemic awareness, phonics, and then at older grades, word study. They must be high quality encoders as well, which is where they need that intentional writing block. They need the opportunity to practice their skills and increase their fluency so that the written word to their brain sounds like the spoken word. And then they need that data-driven small group. A lot of times we'll see people organize these in the instructional structures or kind of the way that we deliver that instruction, which the next slide kind of takes that same concept and puts it into that larger area of what types of instruction do we see with interactive read aloud, shared close reading activities, teacher facilitated small group, independent reading, phonics word study, and then the writing workshop. Scholastic Education Solutions is here to create the solution that best matches where you are and how you best need to meet the needs of your students and teachers, regardless of the way that you frame that inside your district. That's the work we love to do. And at Scholastic and with our comprehensive Scholastic literacy solution, we've woven together all of these pieces so that you can have a seamless full literacy block that really ensures all students get that data-driven success. So what we want to launch off today and with our agenda for this morning's webinar is, again, glad to meet the team and here to support you. But we want to talk about that need for differentiated small group instruction. Then we're going to show you how high quality text for small group instruction ensures that you're able to meet all the needs of your learner. We're not going to talk today about a singular small group structure or a single instructional strategy for small group instruction. We believe that there's a right time and a right place for all different types of small group instruction, and that when we use high quality, authentic text, we can meet the demands of whatever that classroom, that teacher, and that student needs for small group instruction. And then we'll talk about how we can target comprehension and phonics inside of that small group, and then set the stage answering any of your questions and preparing for our next webinar in November. So let's talk about the need for teacher differentiated small group instruction. Why is it so critical that we make sure we continue to have this as part of our literacy block? I'm a huge Grant Wiggins fan, and Grant Wiggins says learners need endless feedback more than they need endless teaching. We are big proponents of high quality explicit whole group instruction. But what we know is when we're working with a group of 25 students, we can't provide each student that in the moment feedback that they need to grow as a literacy learner. We can't be there to scaffold it in just the right way as they're engaging in text so that they can make that small jump and continue their literacy journey. The only way to do that is to bring kids into a smaller student teacher ratio where we can give them that feedback. That's where small group is so valuable. Again, not a singular structure of small group, but the concept of small group in literacy is critical because all learners need and deserve the chance to get feedback on their progress in literacy. Moving forward, we can talk about effective instruction for all readers. The first step is trying different instruction. Having the courage to say, this week, I'm going to do my small group instruction in this way because I believe that's what this group of students need. Readers need time to spend more time with each text. They need the opportunity in small group to have a teacher who has the art and knowledge to balance the text complexity in small group with the task complexity. With the saying, I'm going to take this group of students this week and I'm going to push them into a higher level text. But to balance that, I'm going to ask them to not do as rigorous of deep comprehension work. Or the other way around, I'm going to push them into a much more complicated text because I know that they can all deeply engage in this text. And we want to say on the front end, we don't think all reading occurs at the small group table. It's our opportunity to give students feedback. Volume absolutely matters in reading. This is one snapshot, one part of your day where we can maximize differentiation within the literacy block. I love to use this picture of a 120-minute literacy block that's on the next slide to show an example of how students and teachers inside of their classroom may engage in their literacy day. Again, we work with districts across the country to customize supports inside of whatever literacy block that district and or school is working within. And same thing with our comprehensive program, Scholastic Literacy, absolutely tailor it to meet the needs of the students. But really a 120-minute literacy block that maximizes small group instruction, where each student is getting a small group instruction each day, could be set out in this way. And you can see from this model, and what we want to point out is we absolutely still have whole class read aloud and close reading, whole class writing, whole class word work. But we also make sure that students have the opportunity to get the feedback they need. So what are they doing inside of that teacher facilitated small group? Or what should we be seeing inside of high quality teacher facilitated small group? Next slide. It's not a singular structure. Some students, especially our students who are still learning to really engage with text, need that guided reading structure where we're letting them engage in a text that they can decode, that they can begin to read fluently and begin working on making meaning of those texts. Some of our students are ready for literature circles where we're really going to come around and have deep conversations around what's happening inside of texts that them and their peers are reading together. A lot of our students need strategy groups where we're saying, what is the specific comprehension strategy that you need to learn, that you need to master because you're struggling on it in independent learning? And then some of our students need independent reading discussion. They just need the opportunity to gather around the table with peers and talk about what's going on in their book. So they not only foster that love of reading that's so critical, but they begin to understand story structure, character development, and how magical stories are so that they can become high quality writers. So these are just 4 powerful small group structures that should be taking place inside of that small group table. Now, as we expand this out and look at those different groups, you can see there's different ways to put these groups together. There's different types of text to use to really maximize these structures. But where this becomes complicated is when I'm looking at all these different cycles of text and all these different types of small groups, is that our teachers need support to make it happen. A program that is designed fully for guided reading is great for guided reading, but if I have a group of students that need strategy groups, I have to make sure I'm supporting my teachers in that same way. So what we've done at Scholastic and Scholastic Education Solutions is put together a beautiful book room that is all high quality authentic text. And what that book room does, because they're texts all written by authors who intended the books to be read for enjoyment and to be learned from, is we're able to say, whichever small group structure that you need in your classroom, we can support you because the texts are authentic and high quality. So we must give learners that individualized feedback. We must give teachers supports in doing this, because doing this cold means that they no longer have a Sunday. But when we combine this structure, this best practice, with a high quality resource like our level book room, which is part of Scholastic Literacy and also available to support your current instruction, we can hit both of those spots. So I'm going to turn things over to Becky so she can walk you through how Scholastic Education Solutions has worked to make this possible. Becky?
Thank you, Jimmy. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay, great. Thank you. So when we think about the importance of small group instruction, and Jimmy did such a great job setting that stage and transitioning into that importance of high quality text, I'd like to share a quote from Stephanie Harvey's newest professional book. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with her vast body of work, but her new book, An Intervention Reinvention, a volume-based approach to reading success, she talks about and refers to the virtuous cycle of readers, and how when students are able to read well and capably, they feel good about it and they feel good about themselves as readers. And so that success makes them want to read more. And as they read more, they acquire more vocabulary, they deepen their background knowledge, which grows them as readers. But when students have a hard time learning to read, she talks about how they avoid reading because they're not successful at it and they feel inadequate. I mean, think about it. None of us like doing something a lot that we're not really good at. I personally am not the best cook in the world, and the pandemic made me and forced me to cook, and I really did not like it probably for the first year and a half, which is still where we are. And I do everything to avoid cooking because I'm just not that good at it. And so our students are the same way. If they're not good at something, they avoid it. And when they avoid it, they don't get the reading volume they need, which in turn diminishes their reading growth. So it is the Matthew effect. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. The same thing goes with reading. So one of the things that we can do to support them is, as Jimmy said, provide them that authentic text. Like he said, this is text that authors write, published authors, not editors, but published authors write for readers to enjoy. And that's important because it's going to have that real world language, those more sophisticated syntax and structures and patterns in their sentences. And as we know, our state assessments use authentic text in their passages. We know that's why, you know, to make sure our kids are college and career ready, that they can read grade level authentic text. It's that most sophisticated text. But that the other important part of authentic text is it's engaging for students. You know, as you look on a screen, we see topics. You know, we might have someone that's very interested in geology or engineering, or that's a huge Hunger Games fan, or absolutely loves any book written by Walter D. Myers. And so the authentic text that's carefully leveled, in this case leveled by the F&P system from A all the way to Z, it's going to support them, engage them, but also promote that higher level critical thinking, and promote that discussion that comes along with it, and that deep analysis that we know is so important. And we also know how important close reading is, and doing that close reading and that repeated reading and doing that deeper dive in textual analysis. And so having short text that are adapted from and adapted down from authentic text is also a key piece. And so these short texts are really a powerful way to facilitate that deep, close reading that can be completed in one session. So that way, the next session in small group, the students can do a repeated reading, and the third session do another deeper repeated reading, and be able to go back in the text and cite that textual evidence that we know is so critical for the higher level thinking and comprehension and analysis. So we want to make sure in small group we're providing both types of text, the authentic text as well as short authentic text for that close reading. And then if we connect back to, as Jimmy was talking about, the brain research and what neuroscience tells us, is that, you know, language comprehension is part of that Scarborough's reading rope. It's an important part of the puzzle of really being able to read and comprehend deeply. We know that teaching knowledge and vocabulary does improve comprehension, and that exposing students to new vocabulary and background knowledge and concepts is going to grow their language comprehension, which improves both decoding and reading comprehension. And I know a lot of you probably have encountered this with when you were in the classroom, if you're currently in the classroom, or with the teachers and principals that you support, that vocabulary really makes or breaks how the reader comprehends that text. And we see that especially as they move up in the grade levels. Our middle school and high school teachers, our content teachers, always comment on how vocabulary really gets in the way of their understanding that content and understanding that text. So making sure that we've got those authentic texts that can build the knowledge and background knowledge and vocabulary is really the impetus behind our Scholastic Level Book Room 5, because it's going to provide over 1,100 different titles of authentic text from levels A all the way to Z. And it's going to provide 45 different titles at every single level A to Z. And it's going to provide 6 copies. So that way teachers, regardless of their approach to small group differentiated instruction, they're going to have all the resources that they need. And this provides that incredible equitable access that all teachers need in that building as a common resource. And so what the Level Book Room is going to do, it's going to give those students those rich reading opportunities so they can progress and excel and move into increasingly complex text. And it's going to give teachers those high quality instructional resources they need, including access to all the digital teaching resources and management tools to support that differentiated small group instruction. With our Scholastic Level Book Room, we include the Accelerator, which is that 24/7 online access to all those instructional resources. So all the teaching cards are available, not just in print in the Level Book Room, but digitally in the Accelerator. It's going to provide a host of videos of different approaches to small group instruction to support teachers with that embedded professional learning. And our Level Book Room really sets up for really quick setup. I know a lot of times schools can spend a lot of time and resources in setting up and adding to their Level Book Room, but we do magazine style pre-packed boxes. And our books come already ready to go in plastic zip bags that are very hardy. So you can just pull the slip cases and go and set it up and be ready. And here you see a picture of one school part. This is only part of their Level Book Room. They have it in their PLC room, if you will. So you can see that's where teachers meet, and they're right there to access all of their level text. Here is another site on the first two pictures where they had a resource room off the media center where they were able to keep their Level Book Room. And then the picture to the far right, I always like to include because I know we have many sites that are like, yeah, we just don't have an extra space for that resource. And so what this site did is they had a hallway leading to the media center or the teacher's resource room where they were able to install and put the Level Book Room. So they were able to really utilize that extra wall space. Now, when we talk about schools using and utilizing the Level Book Room, this is an incredible instructional coach in Orange County Public Schools, which is in Orlando, Florida, where she talks about their Level Book Room and the importance of authentic text and what it means for their students. And we'll actually see her in front of her Level Book Room. I'm going to start the video and I'm going to do a quick pause just to make sure that you can hear the audio. So Jimmy, I'll just need your, if you can let me know in just a second if you're able to hear it.
Shalise Goldborn.
Can you hear the audio, Jimmy?
Shalise.
Yep, we can hear it.
My great friend from Orange County. Thank you so much for jumping on with me quickly to show our friends the incredible, beautiful Level Book Room that you have there at Killarney Elementary. Shalise is a literacy coach in Orange County, Florida, and I had the chance to visit her book room, and her wealth of knowledge, her leadership at her school is really just so inspirational to me. We wanted to share. So good morning and good to see you.
Jimmy, it's been so long.
Absolutely. Can't wait to get back down there in person. What I think would be so helpful if you would share as a practitioner in it every day, what are you finding most helpful about your resource with the Scholastic Book Room?
One thing that I think, I mean, there's so many things, but definitely the variety. Our goal here, I know we're in Orlando, we're a little bit more than Mickey Mouse. So we actually want to teach our kids to have a love of reading. That's my why, right? So the variety of books that was included in our wonderful book room here allow us to really get some authentic text in our kids' hands that range much more than those typical trade books that you'll see our primary kids have. It's really adaptable K-5 at least and beyond, actually.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Can you show us, the backdrop is beautiful. Can you show us the expansiveness? You talked about the how many authentic texts are included. Can you span your book room for us? Can you possibly show us just the whole book room?
Absolutely. Listen, this is my labor of love. I will show you this. I will show anyone who will see it. Lots and lots and lots and lots of text here, lots of topics, many different styles of text that are included. So it gives me options. It gives my teachers options because, as you know, Jimmy, I don't like to make just one choice. I like to have many different things to pick from.
And that's why I think it's so valuable, and the way you're using the book room there is so important to us. Can you show us those slipcases? Will you just take one and show us or exactly what's in each slipcase, to just kind of so people can get the feel of one?
Sure, I actually have one here. So when I have teachers come in, and as you know, our teachers will come in looking for something specific. So it's very helpful because we have so many, different things to choose from. We do have to find a way to narrow it down and kind of find a little bit more, pinpoint what we're looking for. So in front of each sleeve, it kind of has a guide of what's included. And this is one of my favorites just because it just reminds me that we're using authentic text. I know I've said it a couple of times here, but look, it's an actual book. So teachers can kind of see, what they're, the text that they're going to use. And it also, aside from just the label, it includes just a teacher's guide to help them with the instructional piece of it. And that can be adapted in any way. So, I have teachers coming in here looking to, hit a specific standard. They can kind of see, is this what they're going towards? Is this their objective of their lesson?
That's awesome. That's beautiful. Yeah, I love that book that you picked up, and what a great representation of the amazing titles. Now, I know that there are so many uses that you are able to do with authentic text in small group instruction. Can you give us what have you seen there at Killarney that has, inside of the classrooms, the different ways that teachers are using the book from the book room?
Yeah, so I think what has been so eye-opening for me has been just seeing it in my primary classrooms, especially because, of course, in intermediate, yeah, of course, we want our kids to be reading chapter books and that sort of stuff and get their hands on this, whenever. But especially in my primary classes, we have teachers who are going through the process, looking at the skills that they need to teach, explicitly teaching the kids, and taking it a step further and giving them a true concepts of print experience with an authentic text. So that, to me, it just really drives it home because, I can teach a kid, any skill that I want to teach them, but the point of instruction is to, get their hands on something that's meaningful for life. I don't want to just give them worksheets all the time. We want to, give them an experience to transfer their knowledge to something real, something tangible. So that has been amazing.
Well, that's amazing, Shalise. And I can't tell you how much we appreciate it. Just getting to be inside your book room virtually here gives such a better feel of this resource. So I can't wait to be back with you. You're an educational giant. We appreciate you and we love you.
You're welcome back anytime.
And I think she really transitions us well into all the instructional ways that her teachers and that teachers use level text for that differentiated small group instruction. And so when we think about targeting comprehension phonics skills to really meet students' need, we know from the research that is highly supported. And Watts Toffer, they found that students made greater gains, both in their comprehension and word reading, when their teachers differentiated instruction using those small, flexible learning groups, compared to teachers that provided very high quality, but primarily whole class instruction. Barbara Taylor and her associates found the same thing. They found that actually students were able to better apply the phonics skills and patterns when the teachers then had small group application, because the teachers were then able to coach into them applying those patterns when the students needed it at that point of use. And so we know research supports that as we go into thinking about our differentiation. And so again, we talk about Jimmy said, whether we're working at the primary level or intermediate level and doing guided reading, or we're doing strategy groups targeting that application of those phonics and comprehension skills, or in lit circles, or conferring with students on their independent reading discussion groups. In any of these approaches, but especially when we're targeting specific skills, what we want to do is make sure that our teachers are personalized learning for every student. And so when we're looking at providing that authentic text for differentiation, making sure that there's teacher support. As they said, making sure teachers aren't spending all of their Sundays and Saturdays having to create their own lessons around that when they've got a teaching card, it's going to help scaffold them and it's going to help them target. As Shalise talked about, they can already quickly narrow down which text they want to use because they know those texts are already targeting those key comprehension skills. And so with that, and I think my audio is cutting out a little bit, so I'm going to put my earbuds in real quick. You can see that, with that teaching support, we want to make sure that we can also provide comprehension support, word study support, but also be able to adapt it based on if we've got second language learners or striving readers as well. So let me get my earbuds in and see if this helps. And so here you'll see in our level book room, our teaching cards that Shalise held up. They really provide a menu. So that way teachers can choose the targeted skills and strategies that the students need or that they're trying to connect to their whole class lesson. And so our cards are going to provide support and summaries around the standards, making comprehension connections, highlight the essential vocabulary and genre, build that bridge and adapt it for second language learners, have those deeper comprehension prompts, thinking within, beyond, and through the text, and also have targeted lessons around phonics and word solving strategies. And of course, always providing 2 prompts so students can extend that meaning through writing, being able to do that encoding piece and be able to respond in a genre format that is real world reading, but also is going to be opinion or argument or narrative or expository to tie to your standards as well. And remember, our teaching cards come in print with the physical books, as Shalise showed you, and I'm pulling out of my slipcover right now. But the teaching card also is available digitally in our level book room accelerator. And that accelerator is going to provide all the teaching support and all the embedded professional learning videos I talked about earlier. And so your teachers will be able to preview those teaching cards online and be able to track and check out the books in an online checkout system. So that way, when teachers are online, they don't have to waste time looking through all the resources. They'll know which ones are available, so they can check it out digitally. And then they could do that during, dinner time or after dinner time. And then the next morning, they could swing by the level book room and pick up those books with ease. And our accelerator really helps target that differentiated instruction, because logging in, you can search by guided reading level or by topic or theme. It can be connected to the content area. They can search the books and lessons by phonics or word study skill, and or by comprehension skill or strategy. So it really allows that quick way to deliver and find those targeted titles that are really going to meet students' needs. And the accelerator also allows coaches and building leaders to track usage. So they can see, and also a teacher can go in, 3 months later, oh my gosh, did I use that book? I can pull that up and see that. And so here we see which titles are currently in use. And then we can even drill down and see
what the, you know, by teacher, what levels and what titles are being checked out. And the accelerator is also going to provide the resources, the implementation guide, the user's guide, the setup guide. It's going to have printables, both for teachers. It's going to have the behaviors to notice and support for all levels of text A through Z, which is going to help teachers accelerate students through the levels of text. Because once they can apply all of those behaviors, then it's time to move them to the next level of text so the kids aren't getting stuck in levels. It's going to have comprehension bookmarks that they can print out and independent reading support as well. It's also going to have running records for benchmark books for every single level. So again, another way to determine where they are and when they're ready to move up, but also really utilize when students get stuck in a level to be able to pinpoint what they need specific help with. And the videos as well. And so here you'll see the, that tracking the usage that I talked about just a minute ago. All of that's available in the Level Bookroom Accelerator. So what I'd like to do is just take a minute. It may have logged me out. Yeah, it logged me out. Let me log back in and just show you what that looks like.
And what Becky's doing here as she logs in, for many of you have our Scholastic Digital Manager. This is where all of your Scholastic Digital supports and or programs are found. So it's that single logon, so you can find all of them. You can see on Becky's screen, she has a plethora of programs. She works across all programs across the country, but yours would then populate with exactly the program. So if you have Level Bookroom, the accelerator would be your icon, usually one of 1 to 5 different programs that you have, and then you hop right in, and then Becky can show you how you can drive to find the text you need.
Thanks, Jimmy. So let's say I'm targeting levels G, H, and I. What I'm going to do is check those off and click done. And then what I can do is I can start to sort by skill or strategy. And so as I expand down, you can start to see all the comprehension skills. So let's say I am noticing in my standards work that comparing and contrasting for this particular group is a challenge for them. So what I can do is I can also hit see all and expand down and see all the comprehension, all the phonics and word study skills. So as I go down, I see vowels and I'm like, okay, maybe I can find a text that addresses both areas that they're needing additional support in. So now I'm filtered down to 51 titles. And if I think back to my targeted standard, because in this case, the standard is wrapped around informational text, I can filter one more time around there. And so now I've got 29 titles to choose from. And I can see there's short read text, and then there's our books as well as benchmark books. And as I scroll through, I'm like, okay, I know this group has really been talking about and engaged around theirs. Now both are, I'm going to unreserve one. I know that one set's available. So here I can pull up that instructional teaching card and I can start to look at for those areas that I know they're going to need more support with. And here I see a lesson with specific page prompts around comparing and contrasting. And I think, yeah, that is definitely going to be supportive of this group. And then under vowels, I see that they've actually got words with our controlled vowels and that they absolutely need help with that. So with all of that instructional support, this is the book that I think is really going to be a great one. So I can reserve it. And then if I wanted to, I could actually save it and add it to a set or start a set. Because when teachers are spending their time doing the searches, they want to save time and so they could go back. So if I did a compare contrast at these levels, then those titles I found, I can pull back up when they're ready for that next book. I can save sets by my standards. I can do it by skill or strategy or interest level as well. And so that really is the power of the Level Bookroom Accelerator. And all those resources were referred to earlier. Those are found here, the implementation guide, the video library for all the different small groups, including great Jan Richardson videos, and then all the user and implementation guides. And then over to the right are all the printables. And then the reports are where I showed you before, where we could see which titles are checked out and which levels are being checked out as well. So I wanted to say the last couple of minutes, I'm going to come back out of here and stop sharing and see what questions we might have in the chat, and see, Jimmy, if there's anything there.
No, nothing that we haven't been able to answer in the chat, or people who have direct messaged me. So no piece there. I do think that as Becky talked there, I think that I wanted to reemphasize in a conversation that I was having with one of our members in our room today is around that, what we're really trying to do here with the resource that Becky showed was that we know we have to have these varying types of small group instruction. That's the research is clear on that teachers need feedback, and there's not a singular grouping structure that's going to work for all students. We know that. But we have to support teachers in making that happen. We have to make sure that we're not overtaxing them. And that level bookroom accelerator tool is really such an integral part of how we make sure that happens. And I think when teachers are able to do their planning by searching the specific need that a student needs, and they can do it from wherever they are, we allow teachers to implement the best practice and remain empowered to love their profession. I'm a big believer. I was an elementary school principal, a deputy superintendent, elementary school teacher, and teachers don't leave the profession or get burnt out due to falling out of love with teaching or their kids. I think it's that they put so much pressure on themselves to do what's right for kids, and that can be exhausting. And so really trying to support the teacher in that. And I love what Becky was able to show there and how that works. So that was just a side conversation that I was having with one of our guests today, and just wanted to share that with all, because I think her and I kind of shared in that same passion of making that happen. So thank you, guests, for that conversation. And so that was just the point that I wanted to pick out. But please, anybody else, other questions, or feel free to chime in with anything that we can support you with today before closing out.
Okay. And just real quick, as we get ready to close out, we talked about the power of authentic text, but we know with early readers that there is a time and a place for that decodable text, for them to apply in authentic reading and writing experiences. And we love sharing this quote by Wiley Blevins that speaks to that as well. And so we do have a resource that many of our sites have pushed into their level book room, our new Scholastic phonics readers, to target for that K2 audience. And so it's going to provide that systematic phonemic awareness and phonics instruction in decodable text in small group sets of text. And so the teacher's guide has that systematic scope and sequence, and has a lesson for every single title, and our phonics reader. So if you are looking for that decodable text for that direct application and authentic reading and writing experiences, this is another resource that you might want to consider. So with that, as we wrap things up, if you have not registered for parts 2 and 3, we encourage you to go back to that link. And if you need that link again, Jed can absolutely share that with you. And we really want to thank you for your time and for your thoughtfulness around the work that you do. Being able to differentiate instruction to really meet students' needs really makes a difference in their progress and in their journey as readers and writers. So Jimmy and Jed, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I did have one question that just came up that I was typing to, but I can answer the whole crew. There was a question about decodable text for older kids. So outside of that, that initial, again, our decodable text, when we speak of them being K2, that is Our goal, of course, in literacy instruction is that by the end of second grade, you'll sort of mastered those key phonics skills, but at the same time, we realize that doesn't always happen. So 2 solutions to discuss in that question around older kids. We do have what we call phonics chapter books, which are decodable texts that are written to have those chapters in them so that the students don't feel like they're reading little kid books, right? So it makes them feel like they're more developmentally appropriate for those older students. So that is one avenue that we are able to support in terms of supporting older students who need that. But we also have an intervention program called RISE that we would be happy to talk to you about as well for older students who still need to work on decoding, where we read a text, then practice that phonics skill deeply before having the students then use that phonics skill to decode that text independently. So we do have a couple of options for that, but the most clear answer is those phonics chapter books that we can use as well that allow students to feel like they're not in a little kid text. So great question, but that was the last one from the chat that we have. So that's all I have, Beck.
Thanks. And Jed, I unmuted you if you would like to.
Did that work?
Yep, I can hear you.
Well, so I just wanted to say thank you too, and thanks everybody. Thanks Becky and Jimmy for your great presentation today, and thanks to everybody who for your focused attention while we went through everything. A lot of great things came up, and I will be following up with you. The previous slide that Becky showed with the blackboard and the different registrations. I will send that. That's an image that you'll get in your email that's live. You can click on it to access the registrations. I'll also point out that there's the flyers on this screen are also going to be live in that image, so you can access some of the information that was presented today and some that will be coming in the other webinars that we're doing. So just thanks again, and I hope you can join us for the next 2. But Becky and Jimmy, I'll leave it back to you if you have anything else to wrap up with.
Thank you. So again, we appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to seeing you next month in January as well. And then I'll finish up with Jed's contact information. We hope you all have a wonderful day. Let me stop the recording.